Welcome to the ExPack podcast, your source for news regarding video games, esports, and everything media. Now, here are your hosts, Jacob and Dalton. What is up, people of the internet? We're back again with episode number 7 of the ExPack podcast. My name's Jacob, and with me, as always, is Dalton. Don't call me Dalton.
You're gonna bring that back?
I don't know.
Real?
I was trying to think of because
Nope,
someone
just
said
let it
something. Someone said something in Summit's Twitch chat that I thought was really funny. They said, "Tell," because he was playing with Sean Garris, and he said, "Is that the real Sean? Don't call me Sean Garris. So it was like, in parentheses was "Don't call me Sean Garris," but then that was also in parentheses. So it was really funny. I don't know. I was trying to put something in between your name, but I also realized that I probably shouldn't say your last name right away. So that's anyways, damn, Dalton, back at it again with another ExPack podcast. Okay. Anyways, so we're gonna talk about video games,
Thank God.
right? I think that's what we're here for.
Instead
Something
of
like
dank
that.
memes all day, that'd be
Dank memes are the only.
a separate podcast.
That's-
It's another podcast.
Yeah. What are we calling that one? Mokdawi.
Another name for Diablo 3.
Well,
Clan
it
or
was.
guild or whatever.
It is.
Group.
I mean, I made you the leader so I could go join Dyrus's guild. But anyways, what?
Cool. Yeah, no, that's
I'm pretty sure I told you that though.
you probably did, and I just forgot. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't
You
listen
don't
to you.
actually listen to me. Anyways. All right. So yeah, video games. We did not record last week. I was busy early week, and then you were pretty much sick for the rest of the week, and then Division came out, which we're going to talk a lot about Division later. So we've been playing that. We played that over the weekend. And yeah, now we're back. It is Wednesday, the 24th of February. And yeah, so let's get right into it with some League of Legends talk. And as far as the esports side of it goes, as far as standings, not a whole lot different as far as placement in NA at least. We obviously
Except for Echo Fox.
Right, that's very true. So Immortals is still undefeated at 12-0 now. Woohoo, good for them. CLG and Cloud9 are tied for second with 8-4 records. TSM is in fourth with 7-5, and then we have Energy at 6-6, and then we have Liquid and Echo Fox now tied for sixth at 5-7, and then we have Impulse and Dig at 4-8, and then we have Renegades at 1-11. Oh,
Woo!
Renegades. So let's talk about this real quick. Immortals. Yep. And then we have CLG. CLG and Cloud9, I feel like, have impressed me these last couple weeks. At first, C9 was going through the whole bunny. Wait, right? Wasn't it Bunny Fufu?
Yeah, that's
Was
who
the
they had
sub?
as a
Yeah,
pro.
so they had Bunny Fufu and High switching back and forth, and I guess that they didn't really know where they would land as far as that goes, and as far as their identity with their support and their shot caller. And then now that they have High for sure, and they have him in every week, like they've been a lot more consistent, I think. And individually, they've been playing pretty well. They're definitely not quite like that, like outstanding kind of team yet. Like not like the first split where they came in and just went undefeated and all that.
I was actually gonna say though, do you really think that they were that good back then, or everybody else was that unimpressive?
Well, that's what I mean though. Is that I mean comparatively, like I don't think that they're like break ahead of the pack, Immortals good, right? So I
No.
think that they're a solid team, and I think that they deserve the spot up there with CLG and TSM. Um, and I think that's probably how the standings are going to reflect going on with the season. I think it'll be a lot of Immortals, and then the next three I think will be CLG, Cloud9, TSM, which we've talked about this. Um, I think the most unimpressive has been Energy these past few weeks because
Yeah.
they came out of the gate doing really, really well, and then now they just have been dropping games and not really performing as well in the early game and some odd things. And I feel like it's a lot to do with communication. I know that Moon has kind of expressed his discomfort on the team, maybe, and so they might end up doing something there. Um, and then Echo Fox go 4-0 their last games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've now gone 2-0 two different weeks. And it hasn't obviously it hasn't been all bottom teams because they were one of the bottom teams. They beat Liquid, they beat Energy, they beat Renegades, and they beat Dig,
Yeah.
I think.
Which
Wait,
I
maybe
mean,
they didn't beat Energy. Maybe they beat TIP. I think it was TIP.
yeah, I think you're right.
So they haven't quite so what they did is they brought back Froggen, and then they have KFO in the top lane. So they haven't played that lineup against the top teams yet, so it'll be interesting to see. I think that they play TSM this weekend. Um, Actually, I think they play Immortals this weekend.
They play
Let me look. They play TSM.
Immortals and TSM.
Yeah, so okay, they play both. I was right. I was right
They're
on both
screwed.
accounts. So this will be kind of one of the weekends that we see how does this actually stack up to the top
Yeah.
teams. You know,
Was it a fluke or not?
right, right. Which some people may argue that TSM isn't a top team. I think that they're. So they, for those of you who don't know, they did fire their coach. I cannot remember his real name. I just know he goes by Woodbuck on Twitter. And so he's no longer with them. They did, however, bring in Walden. What is his first name? Greg? Is it Greg Walden? I cannot remember. But anyways, he's a doctor basically. He does sports psychiatry, and stuff like that. And a lot of teams have used him in the past. Doublelift talked about on their last episode of TSM Legends, which is their ongoing series about the team and whatnot. Doublelift talked about working with him while he was on CLG, and he's kind of an established name. And he's worked with Renegades. He's worked with Ember. Actually, I believe I saw an article about. I think it was Ember. I'm pretty sure it was Ember that is actually hiring him as their head coach, but he will still be working with other teams as well as far as like a console kind of basis. So they went 1-1 this last weekend. The weekend before that they were 2-0. And so I guess we're still kind of seeing a little bit of inconsistency as far as TSM goes, which is unfortunate, but I think that they just have some kinks to work out, and I feel like they'll be coming into their own pretty soon.
Well,
I think we're 3/4 of the way through the season now.
Mm-hmm. About, I think.
So hopefully they can clinch a playoff spot,
Yeah.
and then I think that's where we'll see how they really do.
Honestly, I think that's probably the best they're aiming for. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can argue about all the talent they have, but I mean, it's one thing to have like a completely brand new team where everybody grows together. It's another thing to have like this mishmash of people. Like even if they weren't, take away the fact that they have like some of the best talent, you know, best in AADC, quote unquote, best mid, quote unquote.
Right.
But take away all that, you still have people that have had their own teams, their own play styles, their own, you know, way of playing professional league for so long, and you're just squishing them all together.
Right.
So,
And I think that's the biggest thing is you have these players that have been around for so long, and most of them were with one organization. Doublelift was with CLG pretty much the entire time. Yellow Star was with Fnatic for most of his, actually, pretty much, all of it until this year. Bjergsen has gone around, but he's still a little bit newer, I guess. And then Svenskeren kind of went around, and Hunster is probably the newest.
Yeah.
as
And
far as into the pro scene. So
and that's kind of what I was saying. Like, look at Hunter; he's actually performed
right,
pretty
right.
well
So
because
you're
it's
taking these
he's
people that like are so used to maybe the way a certain team works and the synergy and the play styles and everything like
hmm
that. And Yellow Star is used to one way that his dual partner plays, and then now he's with Double Lift and it's different. And clearly like there's some issues as far as I feel like it's primarily stylistically of how they play and what rotations and different things like that.
yeah.
So that does take time. I mean, we see that with the new teams as well. I mean, if you take that same situation, but with Renegades, where they're veterans, but they're not necessarily the best, then you have a team that goes 1-11.
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
difference: is that they are good enough that they will keep their spot midway, mid high, as far as the standings go, and hopefully get into the playoffs. Um,
Yeah.
this last weekend was Immortals clinching their playoff spot already at 12-0. They got 12 wins, so they're already in. So that's interesting and good for them. They had a kind of somewhat close game against Renegades, which was really random. Their early game was
Yeah.
just kind of sloppy, but then a lot of the people were just saying that they weren't taking it very seriously at first, and then they realized that they needed to win, and then they just did it. And which is kind of like, okay, like if that's really where they're at, then I mean,
I
good
mean,
for
it is
them.
where they're at.
Hopefully, it just doesn't take them to any like BM type stuff where they're completely
I don't.
trolling.
No, I don't think so. It's just, you know, you're under so much stress, I'm sure, all the time to finally be like, if you were going in 12-0 against, or 11-0 at the time against Renegades, like, you want to relax a little bit.
Right, right, yeah,
I mean, come on.
yeah,
I can't blame them for that.
yeah. So yeah, we're getting towards the end, and I would like to see Echo Fox be the ones to beat Immortals. I think that would be really interesting.
That'd be awesome. Like, I like Immortals and I like Echo Fox, but I just think that would be like, as far as underdog goes, that would be
Because I would love to see Echo
ridiculous.
Fox in the playoffs. I think Froggen kind of deserves it after all the crap he's had to go through,
Yeah.
to be able to even play. So yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. And then over across the Atlantic in EU, we have a three-way tie for first at 9-3. We have G2, Vitality, and H2K. In fourth, we have Unicorns of Love at 8-4. Not that much of a difference between them and the first place people. And then we have Fnatic at 7-5, Origin at 6-6, Elements and Splice are both at 4-8, and then we have both Giants and Roccat at 2-10.
This one was a little more interesting to me. I did not see a three-way tie for first coming out of this because,
No, and if I did, I would have expected Unicorns of Love instead of Vitality.
yeah,
But
definitely.
Vitality has definitely found their stride, and they're proving their worth against top teams. Um, definitely G2 Esports, I think, will stay at the top. H2K has continued to kind of prove themselves. My league just went off. What is this? Oh, anyways. And then Fnatic has definitely been better. They were kind of shaky a little bit, and then now they're okay. I need to turn off the sound. Sorry. And then Origin has just been unimpressive, to say the least.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
don't.
kind of unfortunate.
I don't even.
I mean, same with Elements, though, because I definitely expected Elements to be doing a little bit better. Rocket this last week did pick up Noxiac, who was the support for Fnatic before they replaced him. So maybe that'll help them out a little bit. But other than that, I mean, just some really solid play coming from the top teams. Like, really all the top 5 teams have been pretty solid these last few weeks. So
The thing, yeah, as it stands right now, what do you think about? I mean, I know it's way early to say anything, but NA versus EU in the top teams. Because
so I think that the top 3 or even the top 4 right now, G2, Vitality, H2K, UOL, are all better than anyone in NA,
really,
except for maybe Immortals.
I was about to say I would agree with that. I think Immortals plays the meta a lot better than most of the EU teams are.
Right, and I think, and that's what I was getting to, is that I think Immortals will put up and be able to, at the very least, contest with any of the EU teams right now, and they definitely should be able to beat them because they are just. I don't know what it is, how they did it, what kind of crack they're smoking, but they play so freaking well together, and they all somehow they just have meshed to this freaking I don't even know, dude, Zodiac type team, and it's just working for them.
Yeah.
And I think that none of these EU teams have shown quite that same level of just stomp. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
G2 has been like all these teams have been consistent, but they're just not quite at that level, that breakaway where like Immortals doesn't even look like they're in the same league half the time. So,
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm
but all that to say that I haven't really watched all that much. I watched a couple matches of SK and LGD, and then KT. What are they? KT Tigers now, I think.
I don't know. They
Um,
changed their names so
yeah,
much.
yeah, they really do change their name a lot because they are way more about sponsors and like how TSM was TSM Kingwin for a little bit. But anyways, um, so yeah, I mean that's why I think that Immortals will definitely put up against the EU teams. I think that CLG definitely has a chance. I think C9 and TSM. Well, I don't really know about TSM, but I feel like TSM and C9 will probably struggle.
I think TSM has more potential.
Right, and I think that they could just come into, if they do get to the international, I think they could just come in and just prove everybody wrong after a short break and working out kinks and things like that. Um, but I think CLG will keep being consistent, and I think C9 definitely could. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like they're going to run into problems against the some of the EU teams. But we'll see. We'll have to wait for that to actually come into international and stuff like that. So
Yeah, it's still ways off.
yeah. So something that I mean we kind of mentioned like the roster issues almost like with Froggen not being able to play and roster changes and then we see Immortals who is not had any issues with anything like that. Um, and I'm kind of concerned with how this is affecting like this like so if we look at the way that the splits usually go, I feel like spring split is usually kind of like almost a testing split.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like worried to see this trend go into more seasons where teams are picking up these people and like and then just willing to drop them like as soon as they think it's not working out. Um, when I feel like sometimes teams just need time, right? So if you have a whole new roster coming to spring split, and then by halfway through the spring split, you're like, well, clearly it's this person's fault that we're losing, so let's drop them. And then what happens if you still just keep losing, right?
Right.
Um, so and then of course we have all the problems with visas and things like that, which has majorly affected some Counter Strike stuff too. But and so we had Froggen not able to play. Who was it in EU? Ryu couldn't play for the longest time, and I think there was one other, but I can't remember who it was. But anyways, and that's just like partially that's lack of player knowledge, along with like manager coaches knowledge, like as far as like what visas to get and things like that. Um, so I feel like Riot should be putting into place like more protocols as far as that stuff goes to make sure that these players and teams are getting what they need when they need it, so that the people can play, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise it brings that unfair like Echo Fox got shafted for pretty much 7 games because they didn't have like they had like 3 subs or something like that. And it's just kind of absurd. It's totally unfair, but
It's absurd because it keeps happening.
right,
Like,
right. So you would think that now people see, oh well, that happened to this team. Let's make sure that this doesn't happen to us, and then it
mhm.
still does.
Or you would think you would see Riot put in some sort of, outline as to what you need to do if you're bringing a player over from somewhere else,
Right, right.
like something.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and speaking of visas and stuff like that, so we talked about a few weeks ago about the Mongols winning. Um, I think it was IAM. Which one was it? IAM.
I don't remember.
Shoot, I forgot. But anyways, they won IAM in CS:GO, and they're the Mongolian team that was now supposed to go to the MLG Columbus qualifier, but they applied 3 different times for visas and got denied every single time. So they are now it was IAM Taipei. So they
Hmm.
are now not allowed to go, which sucks a lot. So to replace them is going to be Splice, which is I not. I mean, I actually don't even know who their lineup is, to be totally honest. But they were the. Oh, okay. Okay, so they were second, in the as far as the North American qualify. Basically, there's a qualifier for the qualifier. So um, they did beat Optic, but they lost to Enemy. Um, and it's also kind of interesting that Splice is an NA Counter Strike team, which I did not expect because it's a EU League of Legends team. But anyways, so yeah, so there's gonna be CLG, SK, and Vexed, in that same group. So it should be interesting. I haven't been watching a whole lot of the qualifiers or anything like that. I tend to watch the actual majors more than
Yeah.
anything when it comes to Counter Strike. But I was watching. So basically, TSM's lineup is no longer TSM, but They were picked up by. Oh my goodness, I cannot remember the team name now. Ah, shoot. I really want to remember. It's like. I'm gonna say it wrong. I'm about to look right now. Astralis, something like that. Um, I was watching them today because they have some of my favorite players, just individually. I am a TSM fan, like as far as the organization goes, but I do really like the players that are now on Astralis, and they were whooping VP. And
Hmm.
VP is one of those like established teams, which
Hmm.
most of the players on Astralis are like legendary, not what legendary. That's not veteran players, but I mean like they went 16-3 on one map and 16-11 on another. Um, so so it looks like Fnatic won both their maps against SK as well today. So yeah, that's pretty cool for me to see um, those players like get picked up by another organization and be performing well because I really like them, Device and Dupree and Carrigan and them. So it's pretty cool. And speaking of Counter Strike majors, Valve has just announced that the prize pools are going to be increased to $1 million for Counter Strike majors, which is 4 times as much as it was. The old prize pool was 250 grand, and now it's 1 million, with the winner winning 500 grand. So that's now the first place person gets twice as much as the entire prize pool was before.
Yeah.
So that's insane. That is a lot of money, first of all. And second of all, that's really, really cool that they're investing more in this, right? So Valve is definitely willing to kind of take this to the next level as far as CS:GO and because I mean at this point that is their esports game for Valve. So
I was kind of curious how long it was going to take for him to do that too, because I mean, it's Counter Strike's huge now.
right, right.
it was to the point like it was actually kind of weird that the prize pool is still so low. But I guess it really hasn't been
Yeah,
that
because
long since it's been a big deal. It just kind of feels like it because I've played Counter Strike forever.
right.
But
And I feel like it was probably because they wanted to focus more on Dota 2, and now that hasn't necessarily been as popular as they expected. I feel like it's definitely still popular. Um, but I feel like now they're like, okay, well, we have this standalone shooter that is doing really, really well and is consistently effective as far as sales. And I mean, I'm sure they make a ridiculous amount of money just selling freaking keys on their in their
Oh
store.
yeah,
Like,
but
it's got to be absurd. So
it just makes more sense overall because Dota 2 is something trying to get into a market that's already been cornered, and Counter-Strike was already cornering that market of competitive
right, right,
shooters. Like no, I there are a lot of fans of Call of Duty and stuff out there. I understand that, but there's something to the competitiveness of Counter-Strike that like it'll definitely take over that market.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it just makes more sense for them to throw more money at that.
yeah, yep. So yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, that'll be a big deal to whoever wins the next major. We'll see. Have to see who it is. I'm rooting for. Actually, I don't know who I'm rooting for. I actually don't even know if TSM qualified. We'll find out. Anyways, so what's a good week without drama in video games, right? So, I think this is a really kind of a silly situation. But Freakazoid was in comms with some people, Tarek, I think, and someone else, and then Simple was in there, and basically they ended up. Simple said something, and then basically Freakazoid kind of kept escalating it, and then they ended up like Freakazoid ended up quote unquote bullying him and talking about like him not having good friends or something like that. Um, apparently, so okay, I'm trying to. So apparently, um, Simple thought that he was talking to. Yeah, Simple thought that he was talking to Stewie 2K. Um, and so he was saying some stuff, and then Freakazoid just kind of went off. But I watched the video and I listened to it, and honestly, Freakazoid doesn't sound serious at all. Like it sounds like when like we talk shit to our friends or something like that, right? Like it's just kind of that, like oh your aim sucks, blah blah, like whatever, like we would do, and then someone else was saying that it. Well, for the most part, people that know him are saying like he's a good guy. Like this isn't like his
Yeah.
personality, right? Um, and that like I think someone even said that he kind of sounds drunk, like whatever, which doesn't excuse it by any means. Like if it's something that if you are taking it too far, then like there's no excuse. But however, I don't even think that this was like a bad thing. I think this was massively blown out of proportion, especially to the point where they dock him a month's pay, which is like I don't like I'm not really sure like that for one thing that's not I feel like for someone like Freakazoid who knows how much money he makes but it's probably ridiculous, like that's not going to be even hardly a slap on the wrist. So if they really were taking this seriously, is that really the way to do it? And then they released a public letter, and then so did, and then Liquid released a response. Um, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's just I
Where were
don't
the
know. It's
where
just
were the
guys being
comms taking
dudes.
place? Like where
So okay, so I think it was is it Tarek was playing, and it was like an FPL match, I think, and he was playing with Simple, and then so they were in TeamSpeak, and then I guess Freakazoid joined in and was just talking to them. Um,
but was this in the
so
middle of a like actual match?
no, they were just playing FPL or something like that, like a ESEA or something.
What? See, that's the part that bugs me. Like if this happened somehow in an actual like
Like a tournament setting.
sponsored tournament setting, yeah, you don't act that way then. You're supposed to be professional then. But this, how
But
many
even
times?
then, like we've seen some of the stuff that these people do on stage, and even
Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
like even just last week, like they were doing like they do the alliances and stuff like that in their
Mm.
tournaments, and I don't remember who it was, but two of the guys were on stage and they were about to start, and they went to shake hands, and one of the dudes like did that like fake out, and he like brushed his head, whatever, like that
Yeah.
like even that, like that could be considered BM as hell, but like that's okay. But then these guys are off playing their personal games, and he's gonna get fined, and this
Yeah,
gets blown
if
out.
it's in a personal game, like I just don't understand if you compare that to other sports. Like if we don't know what like people in the NFL do
Right.
when the cameras are off. Nobody gives a shit. They don't get fined for that unless it's like breaking the law.
Right.
So why? I mean, if they're gonna go off of things like that, it seems like it would be the same standard as if like what if they were playing just regular Counter-Strike ranked and they got in the same game together
Right.
and they talk shit back and forth and then what they're gonna get fined for that? Like that,
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is that where it's like this is so easy to have public because all it takes is one person streaming it, whatever. Um, and I think the biggest thing is that he's always been like outspoken against bullying and stuff like that, and now this has been basically turned into a case of bullying, right? Which I don't know. I feel like it was just kind of banter going back and forth. Having been bullied for a large portion of my life, I would have been like, haha, you suck worse. And then like,
right?
all right, let's play. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't
I
really
feel
make
like these people should be at the point where like you're a professional Counter Strike player. Like someone else telling you that you're not good at Counter Strike shouldn't really affect you, right?
yeah.
But I don't know. That's just my opinion. So
That's any sport too. Like I
yeah,
mean,
right. Like if someone's gonna tell you you suck at football, but you make $3 million a year playing football, who
yeah.
cares what they say? Like,
I mean, that's like Cam not diving for the ball. Even the announcers get to talk shit about him not diving for the ball. Like,
mm-hmm,
that's
mm-hmm.
part of it. You're being watched. People
Right.
will say what's on their mind.
And
Like,
that's the other thing. Like, I remember I was just watching a broadcast, and the announcers were just straight up putting down one of the players, and I cannot remember who it was. It was, oh man, I can't remember who it was. But basically, they were saying how one player was so good that they shouldn't be sending him in first. They should be sending in this other player because he's not doing anything. And it's like, well, how's that? Like, okay, like that's pretty much bullying too. Like, if you're
yeah,
gonna put it on that scale, that's pretty much bullying. Like, how is that okay?
there's a difference
Um,
between being offended and being bullied. Like,
right, right.
if you're
Like,
offended, you're allowed to be offended, but they're also allowed to say what they want.
and I
Like,
think the other issue with this was that I don't even know. Like, I feel like Simple probably didn't even care all that much. I feel like it was all these people getting upset for him, right? So we have this
hmm
trend going on in the internet where we have all these people getting upset for other people,
Oh
even
yeah.
if that person isn't that upset.
hmm
We see it everywhere with celebrities, with now with esports people, whatever, and it's just like, why can't people just like stay in your lane? Like, if it's not like, stop blowing things out of proportion. I don't know. Just it's all kind of silly. Um, he's still gonna play, so who cares? Uh, uh, well, all right. Anyways, so we had a very um interesting event happen in the world of fighting games. And so, for those of you who don't know, Street Fighter V came out last week, and there was an for the launch, I believe there was an exhibition match that featured um, the one of the top ranked um, Street Fighter players like of all time, Daigo, and he was against
Wait for
Lupe
it.
Fiasco.
There it is.
And so everybody's like, haha, cool, this will be a fun match. Fiasco takes the first round. He then takes the second round. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. So the first game was 2-1, him. Second game, Daigo takes. And then the third game, so it was a best of 5.
Yeah.
And then the third game, it goes back and forth. Like, literally, Fiasco was about to lose the first one and won it. The second round, he got whooped, and then the third round, he wins, and is just kind of like ready to go on to the next one, and then he's like, "Wait, that was three," and he realizes that he just beat Daigo in a best of five, and so it was just a really kind of funny event that happened, and kind of cool too because you see this. I mean, he's a rapper, and he's just coming
Yeah.
in and like beating this legendary Street Fighter player. Like I don't even play fighting games, and I know who Daigo is. So kind of funny, but still interesting.
It was
So yeah.
definitely entertaining. It I mean, do you think it was all legit?
Oh yeah. Oh totally. Absolutely. Because like he had some people like helping like coaching him and stuff like that, which I mean, I don't really know how much that really helps at a last minute thing like that for a fighting game like, and he definitely messed up like quite a bit, but he did some things that were kind of like, "Whoa, what? Like that was actually a pretty good like a decent move."
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
and the other thing was that was cool though was that Fiasco was actually wearing a like a one of one Metal Gear Solid jacket, and
hmm
he gave it to Daigo, and I thought that was kind of cool. So
yeah.
anything can happen, I guess. Next
I,
thing you know, we're gonna have like oh shoot, what's his name? What is that? The basketball player that plays League and has talked about it multiple times on ESPN.
oh, I don't remember his
I can't
name.
remember his name. Next thing we know, we're gonna have him on like an A team or something like that.
God.
That would be hilarious. He retires from basketball and plays League. Um, but I actually forgot about this, but I just watched a video last night of ESPN did a video of a highlight reel from a basketball game and then
Mm.
compared it, and they did like the sound effects from League and like compared him to Dunkmaster Darius, and like it was super funny hearing this like seasoned sports announcer try to relate to League and stuff like that. It was really funny and it was super cheesy, but at the same time it was kind of cool seeing like this is on ESPN, like this is legit, and
Yeah.
with how much ESPN is contributing to even the esports team, or esports world now. They have their own esports sub website on ESPN and everything like that. So
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people that are like, "Oh, why are all these, you know, sports people acting like they know about League?" But that's where it has to start. I mean,
right, yeah, like just because he might be an older gentleman who might have a generational disconnect from us doesn't necessarily mean that he can't try. Like I don't know why like
yeah, I
people
mean, you
would.
got to put it out there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand the negative side of that. I get that it can be a little, and I don't like using this word, but a little cringy
Yeah, and
if you
and that
know
was part of the
League.
article.
But I mean, come on, man. You we had this like long generation of people that played video games were nerds, and everybody was mad that they got called nerds. And then now video games are becoming more mainstream, and they're like, no, it's our thing. It's like, well, you can't. It's one or the other, man. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we see the same thing in a lot of pop culture stuff like comic books and whatever like that. Like all
hmm
the comic book readers that get offended that they're making movies, and it's like, no, this is super cool. Like
yeah,
getting more people that I can talk to about something that I like hell yeah, like I want all my friends to read comic books. I don't
for real.
none of them are, but none of them are like me and want to read 115 issues of one series in 2 days, but that's okay.
I
All
mean,
right.
I have before. I just haven't in a long time.
For anyone out there, read Invincible. It's by Image Comics, and it's written by Robert Kirkman, who wrote The Walking Dead and created The Walking Dead. Actually, one of the Invincible issues was in the last episode of The Walking Dead. Carl is reading one of them, so it was kind of a
Oh,
cool
that's
little
cool.
homage to that. But and Image Comics are the same ones that put out Spawn as well, so you might know that. But anyways, anyway, I could do a whole nother comic book podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the other podcast.
right, right. We have like four. One of them is we just stare at each other. It's actually a social experiment. Um,
We call it broadcast.
it's just a prank, bro. Anyways, so as far as some more general gaming news and whatnot, um, this last week we mentioned earlier, the Division beta, open beta was happening, and so we played it. I think I played about 23 hours over the weekend, something like that. I could check right now, but I'm pretty. It was, I think it was between 22 and 23, and I enjoyed the crap out of it. And even though that it was pretty limited, even as far as a beta goes, to be honest. But even with that, it had enough to like where like I kept wanting to play. Not even that there was more to do. It was just that there was like rejoining a server and then going and finding people to kill was like rewarding. Like it was fun, like hunting rogues and stuff like that in the dark zone. And so they actually broke a new IP. They broke the record for a new IP beta basically, and they had 6.4 million players this last weekend. And it says that they played an average of 5 hours. So that's not a lot, at least not compared to what I played, but it's still pretty cool. They had, because it is a new IP, even though technically yes, it carries the Tom Clancy name, but that it doesn't have anything
Yeah.
to do with any other Tom Clancy games. Um, so yeah, it comes out on March 8th, and I am excited for it. I'm hoping I can pick it up right when it comes out. Um, yeah, what did you think?
I only played 13 hours, and I will say I really liked the game. I'm still a little nervous about it because the beta was so limited. Like everything about the game felt right. It just felt like I'm a little scared because there's just it feels like there's so much more game because of how big the map is that you don't get to see.
All right.
And I feel like because I mean we didn't really test any of that, you know? So I'm wondering if I guess basically I'm just worried that you'll get to the end game and it's going to be basically the same thing we played, just your higher level and more loot that you had to grind through, which is okay. I'm just I guess it wasn't like mind blowing to me, like it wasn't anything special. It was just really solid. Like it felt like a
Right.
really solid shooter. And the other thing is I'm I'm not a big fan of like the third person like I'm not a big fan of H1Z1 Battle Royale and stuff like that. Like it's just not something that's all that fun to me. But I will say that this game was a lot more fun than that was.
Right,
Like
and
the
I
little
think that
twists they
because
put
I
on
feel
it.
like they took elements of that, like in the Dark Zone, like the PvP kind of stuff, but then they added progression system, which I think is the
Right.
biggest thing. And I think, like for me, this is kind of a no-brainer because like if I can spend 22 hours in a beta and still like not be bored, and it was only two pieces of the Dark Zone, and there's like all these like I know that easily it'll be worth $60 because at that point, like, say if I play 60 hours, like if I'm playing $1 per hour, like I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like with the replayability and just the open world aspects and the progression, I think that's something we've talked about before. Progression is a really big aspect that drives you to play more of a game, right? Like
Yeah.
we see it in with shooters, we see it in Battlefield and stuff like that, and we even see it now in League of Legends where they added a mastery system for champions, and that's a progression that makes you go, okay, well now I want to play this because I want to be able to show off my badge, whatever it
Right.
is, right? Um, and so I think that that's something that definitely is keeping me interested in it because I was kind of worried. I was like, well, okay, so this is a story open world and then there's some PvP, but I really liked the way that the Dark Zone and how the systems work with the rogue and everything like that because it's kind of risk reward. Like, hey, if we take out this group, we could jack their loot, but then if we kill too many of them, we're gonna get manhunted and then we're gonna lose it all. So like,
Yeah.
are we gonna be able to hold out? Are we gonna be able to keep our keys? Like whatever.
And see, I liked
So
all
yeah.
that, But again, the thing that worries me is I want to see that. I want to make sure that that evolves into a meaningful way when you go further into the dark zone. So, for example, like it was so limited that getting the keys, there was only a couple chests, so you knew you had to run to the
Right,
chests,
right,
and then the chest, like it got to the point where I had seen pretty much almost all the loot I could get because there wasn't a lot. Like I'm not asking for 50 mil. I'm not asking for Borderlands level
right, right,
guns, right? I'm just saying when you get to the late game, I want to have that chance of getting that really badass rifle. And
right,
I
right.
didn't like in the beta that you have like two guns that were considered the real rare quality and that it was basically just grinding points. Like I would have liked to have and I want to see this in PvE as well. When you get to the late game PvE, I want to see like some harder boss fights and there's a chance that they drop like a really good gun and things like that because that different scaling is what would keep me interested because as soon as I hit the plateau of like the best, you know, pretty much the best stuff you could get. It was like I got bored just because the map felt, and it really wasn't that small, but for some reason it felt small for like the
Yeah,
PvP.
and it's because I feel like,
It's because you did
I
circles.
mean, okay, it was a beta, like it was, and it felt a little bit, it felt a lot like a beta,
Right.
um, which is fine, but it definitely was kind of repetitive because, like, after maybe whatever amount of time that I was in the PvP zone, I pretty much memorized where encounters were and
Mm,
where the drop zones were and where people might go and the hiding spots and stuff like that. So I don't know how big the map is actually going to be, but if it's like at least like four times that, then like that'll
yeah.
give you a decent amount to explore.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just PvP zone. If it's like four times that, then I'll be pretty impressed with it. And then obviously the PVE, I feel like they could do some cool stuff with the PVE though, adding like dailies and
Right. See,
missions that aren't just like apart from the storyline, right? So that it gives new, fresh PVE stuff as well. Because
yeah.
although primarily I feel like I will be playing PvP just because it's fun and like kind of crazy and off the wall, whatever. Um, and I think that in general, like we just had a lot of fun with the PvP. So
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree with all that. I'm just saying like personally, for me, I just hope that everything scales up well into the late
yeah,
game
yeah,
because the PvP was fun for me. And again, I still really want to purchase the game. It's just it would be disappointing to see kind of like almost that like Destiny syndrome of when you got into it, everything was awesome, everything was great, and then you get to late game and you just end up doing the exact same thing over and over
right,
again.
right,
And it's a little better in this one because, like you said, the PvP is really fun. But I really liked the whole world that they had set up, and I liked the cosmetics, and I liked everything about like just the way the missions were set up and everything. So I really want to see a good chunk of PvE content there too, and maybe have some of it cross over, like in the later Dark Zone levels when you're running around. You know, there's random events that pop up with like some serious like badass NPCs you have to take
right,
down and stuff.
yeah.
Because it got to the point in the beta to where the NPCs were just kind of an annoyance.
Right, and I feel like that was because when you maxed out for the beta zone, like we were at the point where ideally we would be moving on to the next
Right.
dark zone, right? So, and we
Yeah.
since we didn't get to experience that, we're not really sure how that's gonna feel, kind of.
Mm.
But I think I think at the end of the day, like this is gonna be a game that you can sink a lot of time into, and so hopefully if they have at least like maybe 20 to 30 hours of like the campaign and co-op and stuff like that, and then obviously just a large amount just a large map for the PvP
Yeah.
that feels rewarding, right? Which is what I'm fully expecting from it. So I'm definitely planning on picking it up at some point. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's an exciting one. Good for Tom Clancy's. Well, not I mean it's a new one, but whatever. The Tom Clancy's game. I've always enjoyed their games ever since the first Ghost Recon. That game was so good. Oh my
Yep.
gosh, I would love to get a Ghost Recon remaster but where you can see your gun. Because
Yeah.
that was looking back, like, and comparing it to now, like, where every FPS you can see your gun, I feel like that would be kind of weird not being able to see it.
It was
Um,
even weird at the time if you really like think about
yeah,
it, because like the
yeah, it
other
was.
games that had guns, it was just kind of like,
Yeah,
hmm,
but God, that the single player. Oh, I mean, it was only single player, but like just the way it worked was incredible. And then I played a lot of Rainbow Six Vegas 2, which was an
oh yeah.
awesome game. Both the Vegas games were really good. Um, and Advent Graw wasn't that bad either. Or was it Graw 2? Maybe Graw 1 was the bad
I think
one.
it was Graw 2. That was like
The-
360 era, right?
right.
Yeah, that one was I actually really liked that one. That was like the third person military shooter, like Ghost Recon
Yeah.
game, right? Yeah, that one
Yeah.
I actually really liked. The multiplayer on that I played a lot of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one was good too.
I almost got it confused with the new Medal of Honor. Because Medal of Honor was one of those that back in the day I loved. Medal of Honor, which one was it?
Oh, there's a lot of those
There
back
was
in the
one
day.
on the original Xbox, Medal of Honor. It was the one before Airborne.
Is that it's
It
the
was like a World War II one, which
yeah, like the
most
first
of them
level.
were back then.
It's like the first level was Normandy, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
and
yep.
yeah.
But anyways, I remember playing local multiplayer with my brothers and my dad. I have two brothers and then my father, and we would play 3 versus 1, and I would beat them every single time by myself. And I remember that's what like well that and I think that was probably around the same time I got into Halo, so that was kind of what got me into shooters.
Yeah.
And I realized that I had good reaction times, and I was like the best grenade user on the planet, at least in my world, because I just remember that was like always the highlight, like just nading people over and over, and like attentiveness to like layout and stuff like that was a big thing in those games coming up early, because if you were able to learn the maps, then you just knew everything. So I feel like that has carried over now into Counter Strike and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. But enough about that. We're gonna talk a little bit about Kojima, and he talked about his new game, and how he would like it to be a series, and he would like it, if possible, to become an anime, manga, whatever, and toys and everything like that, which is pretty cool. He's definitely a big dreamer. So this was during an interview at the Dice conference slash awards. They do like round tables and stuff like that. Gus was actually a host of Gus Sorolla. For those of you who don't know, he's at Rooster Teeth. He was actually hosting a round table at Dice, which was pretty cool. But yeah, he's gonna. So he says he's working on a project that would be a new IP with Sony. He has no idea if it's going to be a series, but he would like it to be. Basically, he wants it to have enough of an impact, with uniqueness, characters, the world, the story, everything like that, that it could be something that could be basically made into this big brand, right? So, and then out of that could spur the other things like the anime and the manga and the toys and everything like that. Um,
It's not
and I don't think that is very far fetched for Kojima, considering Metal Gear Solid's success, right?
yeah, well, it's not outside of the realm of possibility for Kojima, but not only that, he was a game maker in Asia.
Right.
They turn everything into an
Well,
anime.
yeah, that's true. So, yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to see what they come up with, I guess.
He's been talking to Del Toro a
Yeah,
lot too,
yeah,
hasn't he? I mean, it's kind of interesting because the way everything points, it's almost like it has to have some sort of like horror feel to it. Like, I mean, just the way
yeah.
that
You would
like,
think so.
but it, I
But he
mean, it
said
could not be.
he did also mention how he doesn't want to make another PT,
Right. Well,
because it's at this point like that was its thing, and now he's kind of moved on, right? So he's
right.
but it could definitely have that same kind of atmospheric feel and horror elements.
It wouldn't
Um,
really surprise me if it just had horror elements as well, with Del Toro doing some writing. Because I mean, even the Metal Gear series had its like creepy
yeah,
vibes.
yeah, yeah, totally,
So,
totally.
it's possible. Who knows? That guy is just going nuts. Like they let him off his leash and he's just
Yeah. And
I
good for
can't.
him though. Good for him,
Oh
like
yeah.
breaking loose from Konami and stuff like that. And I guess that they were presenting an award. So they were presenting an award for Metal Gear, and Kojima had already accepted an award for a different game. And then I guess Konami didn't actually send anyone. So when they were asking about the Metal Gear award, like Kojima would not accept it because he's not with Konami anymore, even though it's his game. So they were just kind of like, okay, well, Konami's not here, so we'll make sure they get this.
Well,
I thought
legally,
that
I
was
don't
kind of
think
funny.
he's allowed to,
Yeah,
because even at the what were they called this year? The was it just
video
the
game
video game
awards. Yeah,
awards?
I'm
Like
pretty
was
sure.
that
Yeah,
yeah, like they literally wouldn't let him. So I would
yeah,
imagine that any other awards they wouldn't let him either, which
yeah. It's kind of silly, but whatever. It's politics. Who cares? Um, all right. So, also with another big game, Fallout 4, the survival mode has kind of been elaborated on and how it's going to work and the differences and things like that. Um, and so basically, it's going to be a more hardcore mode, right? So they're going to have no manual or quick saving. So to be able to save, you have to find a bed and sleep for at least an hour. The combat is going to be way more lethal. You both deal and take more damage. Um, and you can do even more with adrenaline, which is in the survival mode, you automatically get the adrenaline perk, which provides a bonus to your damage. Unlike other perks, the only way to increase your rank of the adrenaline perk is by getting kills. So basically, you stack this adrenaline perk by killing more, and then it adds more damage, right? So
yeah.
it's yeah. Um, and then no fast travel. Uh, Ammo, so bullets and shells now have weight to them, which varies by caliber. Uh, and so the heavier things like fusion cores, rockets, and mini nukes can be super super heavy. Um, the compass no longer shows enemies, and then the distance like to where like points of interest start to show up on the compass has shortened. So like you have to be closer for it to start telling you where it is. Um, uh, there's going to be more of a focus on like hydration, food, and whatever they're calling it, the wellness. Um, so if you don't sleep, you don't eat, and you don't drink, like it'll give you fatigue, which is like radiation, but it affects your action points rather than your hit points. So the more fatigue you build up, the less action points you have. And then there's also sickness, which you can uh, let's see. So it's like if you eat uncooked meat or drink unpurified water, or take damage from like ghouls and bugs and stuff like that, you can be affected by sickness, and then it will also hurt you. But then you can also make antibiotics, which can heal some of the effects from sickness. And then there's also bed types. So depending on what type of bed you're sleeping in, determines how much time you're able to stay asleep. Um, so because you want to actually pay attention to how much you're sleeping, like just sleeping in a sleeping bag might not cut it. Um,
Right.
Crippled limbs will no longer auto heal after combat until you use a stim pack. Um, what else? So if you exceed your carry weight, um,
This
jeez
one's kind of
Louise,
funny.
it reduces your endurance and agility, and periodically damages your legs and health. That's super cool, actually. That's really like kind of neat. That sounds like a pain though. Oh man. Companions will also no longer automatically get back up if down during combat, and then they'll return home if you just abandon them. And then locations you've cleared will now repopulate enemies and loot at a significantly slower rate. So you can't just like go back as quickly and clear out an area for loot and stuff
I
like
want
that.
to talk about this for a minute because this is kind of ridiculous. Like, I know you haven't played Fallout 4. I played on the hardest difficulty below survival.
Hmm.
The enemies are evil. I mean, those guys will hit you with a grenade from across the map if they aggro. Like, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So playing that with all of this is just, I mean, I would
This
never use my gun unless I had bats because it'd be too terrifying to miss because as soon as you do, you're dead. Like,
yeah. This seems like it's gonna be like I mean it's what you would expect though. It's a super super hard mode. But I think it's kind of cool that they didn't just make it like another level of
yeah,
oh, you take more damage, you have less health, enemies are harder, but it's like all these other aspects you have to pay attention to. And a lot of these are actual like kind of mechanics from survival type games, which I think is kind of cool. Like
yeah.
um, take from like DayZ where you have to eat food and drink water, or even H1Z1, whatever, and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. I dig it. I think if I had Fallout 4, I would probably just go straight into this difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, I've already done 2 playthroughs of it, and I mean, I haven't really had a reason to play it again. I mean, I love the game, but I put
Right.
so many hours into it that this would make me play again, but I think I would probably wait till the DLC came out, just because it'd have some,
Right. Yeah.
something
Some
new
more
on top
stuff.
of
Yeah.
it. But yeah, that's insane. Of course, this isn't like, you know, everything guaranteed of this is going to be in there, but some pretty crazy ideas.
Yeah. So yeah, if you play Fallout, be careful. Don't lose your sanity when you lose the game. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Um. So we have something I don't know. I don't want to call this funny because I never wish ill will upon anyone. But a senator who has been incredibly outspoken about not liking video games is now sentenced to 5 years in prison for corruption and gun running. So basically, he's been like really critical of the gaming industry and how like he's kind of one of those like the crime and everything like that that would spur out of video games, and then he's a gun runner.
Well, I know you didn't want to say it because you're a nice guy, but karma, bitch.
Right. So it's kind of funny.
It's hilarious, and that's the stereotypical like people wonder why
This
young
is
people don't want to vote anymore. Like that's why.
right. This is the guy that wanted to put in the violent game law
Yeah.
in 2011 that got to the Supreme Court and then got shut down. So I mean, this is just a funny turn of events, and I mean, maybe he'll learn his lesson. I don't know.
See, we're
Like
oh,
it's
never
just kind
mind.
of silly.
I'm not gonna start that. Never mind. I was about.
I know. I know. Um,
Let's just say I bet the gun running his excuse is gonna be something like they were for patriots of the United
oh
States or
my
something
gosh.
like that. Like I bet you anything.
Yeah. So
America.
that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
America.
There we go. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Oh. But speaking of hard games, are we gonna play Dead Space
Yeah. I'm totally down.
Friday? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm down. Hardest
Okay.
difficulty.
Yeah. So today's Wednesday. On Friday, we'll tentatively plan in the afternoon, evening, to play some Dead Space 3 co-op on the hardest difficulty. We've played through it, and we played through it on what probably the medium. I don't know what the
I think
difficulties
so.
are.
We definitely didn't do it on the easiest,
No,
but
it
yeah.
was. I think it was. I think there's four, and I think we did it on the one above normal, if I remember correctly. But I think we unlocked the hardest difficulty, so we're gonna be taking a stab at that, and I'll probably, hopefully, be streaming it.
Do we do New Game Plus or just do it fresh?
I think probably just fresh.
Yeah, I was about to say because it'd be fun to unlock all the guns again.
Yeah, I think fresh would be probably more of a challenge. So,
I'll let you be
um,
Isaac this time.
yay. Well, actually, that's better because that What's his name? Wow,
Uh,
that was a long time ago. I can't even think of the other guy's name.
uh
He has a lot of creepy visions, and so
oh,
I'm
that was
okay
so
with
much
that.
fun. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it'll be a good old time. So that'll be hopefully, as long as there's no kinks, it'll be over on at least my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/spiffyish, which as well we do live stream this podcast. We are live streaming this podcast right now, and that is always on my channel, and we pretty much try and do it every week. As well, if you're interested in watching any stupid League of Legends gameplay or Counter Strike, or me pissing myself playing Alien Isolation. Um, I'm also planning on playing season 2 of The Walking Dead soon because I never did it. I played through season 1 of The Walking Dead game, the entire thing in one night, and so I want to do that with season 2. So maybe I'll do that this next week or something like that. Um, I think I might be out of town early next week, but maybe late next week. Um, and yeah, as well, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/spiffyishgames. And this is also goes up. The video version of this goes up on my YouTube, which is also Spiffyish Games. And then you can subscribe on iTunes, the ExPack podcast. And your Twitch is Damon Bjorn. And I'll put links in the YouTube description for all that. And I think that's about it for this week.
I think we covered enough.
Okay.
How long? How long? We were on there for a long time, so yeah.
Yeah, we're at just over an hour, so it's not bad. A little bit longer than last time we had. It was pretty short because there wasn't all that much going on, but
Yep.
we were kind of waiting for the division, and Baird said a solo. All right, well, I think that'll be it for this. Oh, look, there he is. Hey, bud. What are you doing?
Shaking, flopping.
He wants to go outside, doesn't he?
Yep.
Needy son of a gun. All right, that's it. So thank you all for tuning in and listening or watching, and yeah, we hope to see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.